Hello and a very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Hope you're well out there. Welcome to Cafe Clairvoyance. It's Tuesday evening. It's the 4th of August, the year 2020. And how's your August going so far? I hope it's going well. Well, as we creep into August, we're starting off this Tuesday night with an exceptional guest this evening. I was introduced to her via a coach friend of mine. Mila Z, and she said, "You got to talk to this lady. So I said, okay, all right. Well, I did, and I thought, wow, we've got to get this lady on the show. This lady on the show to talk to you about her life, what she's doing, her approaches to life, and maybe some of you guys out there would actually think, I need a bit of this chat. I need to hear things." And so during the show here, you've got all the opportunity, all the time to ask questions. And even though we're having a flow of conversation, you guys, if you'd like to write in and just tell us what's going on, then what's going on in your lives, you want to share your views, your ideas, this is what it's all about. Okay, right, let's do a bit of intro and back to you guys soon. Okay, right. So just to crack you on the show this evening, if you haven't joined the show before, then just to introduce myself. My name is Phil Griggs. I am a medium. I also work in coaching. I also work in psychotherapy and hypnosis. But I just stepped into doing these spiritual shows in around February this year. And so far, they've just gone absolutely bonkers. When I say bonkers, that means good. Terminology means good. Anyway, and each Tuesday, what we do, we invite a special guest on. It's either a regular guest or a special guest. And we just like to invite these people on to share their life experience, share what's going on. And just say hello to you lovely people who are joining us already. We've got the producer saying hello. And we've also got Maria wants to come in and say hello, as does Helen up there in Ireland. And Maria in Spain, and Joe in England. So far. So during the evening, very different show tonight, very different to the normal concept of doing readings, things like this, but we're all open to doing questions and finding out something for yourself that may help you in particular challenges or particular events around you, which has sometimes been a little bit blocking. So we're here tonight to really talk about this and help you guys get on the road. Now, rather than me talking, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go, I think I need to welcome in my very special guest. And we've been talking the past 15 minutes and I'm already excited, thinking, come on now, let's have a great show. And all the way over there in Colorado. And I'd like to welcome in my very special guest, Alessandra Desiderio. I'm sure I'm saying this right, but I'd just like to say a big round of applause and please welcome her onto the show. Just call her Ali. I think she's just quite happy being called Ali, but this is Ali. Hello and a very good evening to you.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Lovely to see you. So whereabouts are you located? If we just start off the show, just having a little chat here. Whereabouts are you?
Yeah, so I'm outside of Denver in a suburb called Highlands Ranch. So Denver is in Colorado. Colorado's about in the middle of the country of the United States.
Okay. So have you got all the mountains around you and all those beautiful areas?
Yeah, it's really neat. If you like hiking, this is the thing.
Yeah, fantastic. We love that. We've got loads of mountains in Spain, so I think there's a bit of competition going on between you guys and us over here in Spain, but I'm sure it's beautiful there. So now, okay, just like to do a little intro here, so you guys know and understand who our guest is this evening. And okay, this is Ali's bio. Alessandra Desiderio is a mum, entrepreneur, and an advocate dedicated to creating pockets of community and impact by using free market ideas to create innovative solutions to social problems. Now, we all go through problems of some kind or another. And I'm quite happy to talk about some of the things as we go through our lives that we experience. But Ali, um, just going down to the bones here. Tell us where your life started off from. Where did it start off from to get you to the point you are now? Because I understand now you're a very successful lady, throwing out loads of projects, ideas out there, and doing exceptionally well. Where is it that you've come from in your life to get where you are now?
Hey, thanks. So my dad was an immigrant. He passed away a few years ago, but he had a driving spirit, as most immigrants do. And so I really followed his lead, and I had a very strong male figure in my grandfather on my mother's side who also helped to raise me. And so those two men set this example of ambition and hardworkingness. And my mom, as a single mom, had her own things to deal with. And so as as I kind of grew up and I ended up leaving home at 15, I kind of launched into this very turbulent next 10 years. And so that uh, was almost like getting punched in the stomach over and over and over again as you're trying to start out, and then you get a little bit and then kind of slide back down. I almost lived at rock bottom, it felt like, with all these different financial and personal and life circumstances that I couldn't get out of. And so my story was really turbulent, and I had lots of things, from being homeless to losing my daughter, to being homeless again and being in a domestic violence situation, and kind of starting over and dealing with bad boss after bad boss after bad boss. And all of these things kind of shaped me to be who I am now, and look at the things that had happened to me and say, yeah, I'm never going to be a boss like that, or I'm never going to be homeless again and have this fear of where my children's next meal is going to come from. And so all of those things together really have made me this way, I think.
Excuse me for saying, but anybody who's gone through that, I think we just said, put their hands up and say, I give up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I give up at least a couple times a day, even now. And I know back 10 years ago when I was starting this journey and going through all this crap, I gave up a lot, and I had a lot of people around me that were constantly saying, no, don't give up. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And I even now look and I'm like, when is it going to get better? Like, when can I do this other thing that I want to do? And why can't I get there now? But I look at myself now versus where I was when I kind of started this mess. Now it's even 20 years ago, and it's just, you see that you see yourself blossom and become somebody else, and you see yourself be able to kind of take on new things and new ideas and new projects and new team members, and helping people in new ways. And so I think you do give up. The point is you do give up. You do throw your hands up. And then it's about, how now do I get back in the game? How do I get back on the court? Because you can't always be on the court. You die. I mean, if you were on the basketball court all the time, you die. So sometimes you got to take a break and say, I'm done right now. I gotta reset. You can't stay there. You can't stay on the couch. You can't stay on the bench. You can't stay in the cave. It doesn't, no. So anyway, you get me off on a little bit of a tangent here, Phil.
No, that's good. This is because I think this is what people want to hear. People want to hear is the fact that you've had this passion, this desire in your life to come up from nowhere, go through. I mean, already people are coming through. They're saying here, Maria Hemsley is saying, never give up, never give up. She's also saying here, know your worth.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes here, because I always think here, when I talk about astrology, when I talk about psychotherapy with people, is that we don't change through nice times. We change through hard times. I think that's what makes us, when we hit those walls and we go, okay, I've got to get back up. I've got to change my life in some respect here. And I think here that to go from where you are now, I mean, so telling us a little bit about what you're doing now in your life, just to show people what you're doing. So you come up for the point where you're practically homeless, or were homeless, to the point where you are now. And I believe now, as I'm saying here, your secretary wrote to me and she said to me, by the time this show is scheduled, it will be public, but Ali is named as a finalist for the most outstanding woman in business by the Denver Business Journal. I think that deserves more than applause. More than a round of applause.
Thank you very much. It was a big shock, and it was actually I'm on a couple of different teams, and I am a multi-passioned entrepreneur, I guess is the term that I'll use for that, which is another way of saying I'm an entrepreneur who can't make up her mind. But
some of the most interesting people you meet are the people who don't make up their minds. They're still searching.
Yeah. Well, and I like having a lot of projects. I like surrounding myself with a lot of people who are passionate about different things. And so I'm lucky to be on a few different teams. And amazingly, a couple people from each of these teams all nominated me, and then I was named a finalist. So we'll hear about the Denver Business Journal on August 13th, which is exciting. But my projects, Phil, to answer your question, so when I started out in Colorado and I left domestic violence 10 years ago, I was on government programs, Medicaid, cash assistance, food stamps. And then I got a job that had me go from $12 an hour, or $12.50 an hour to $14.50 or $15 an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I was removed from all of the state benefit programs. Okay. So I just immediately had to figure out, now how do I make it, right? Like it obviously the $2.50 or marginal increase wasn't enough to take care of those thousands of dollars in benefits that I was receiving. And this is called the cliff effect. That's actually the term that's used to describe what happens when somebody gets right there on the cliff. Yes. And then they have to make a choice, and they're looking down at the cliff like, do I jump or do I stand here on the cliff? So I jumped, and I jumped by taking my kids and hiding them under my desk for 9-10 months. Okay. I would hire students at the school that I worked at to walk around the school or kind of hide them in a classroom. But because I didn't know them very well, I'm like running back and forth to the classroom and, making sure they're not shady or, doing something. So that was really stressful. And so I'm doing that, trying to work, and, I'm constantly getting reprimanded. It's never good enough what I'm doing, but I'm performing at work. So I just had I hated myself. Like, I hated that I wasn't, a good enough mother, and I hated that I wasn't a good enough worker. And I just had a total breakdown. I mean, it was just total breakdown. So, that has driven me now in part to say that this structure, this systemic structure, really doesn't work, right? When somebody has to make that choice. Yeah. And so I've dedicated the last, 6-7 years working on childcare and working on making childcare affordable, especially for that population of people that are staring down at the cliff, saying, how now do I get out of this low-paying entry-level job and get into something better without losing the very thing that's keeping my footing? And so there's a lot I know there to unpack, but I want to kind of stop and say, like, that's one of my biggest projects, one of my biggest pumping blood projects is childcare affordability, and that's why.
Yeah. That. I used to work many years ago in a place called Noah Enterprise in Luton. And it was a charity based for homeless people, whether they would come out of jail, whether they had a problem with a family and they lost their family, lost their homes. Interesting enough, here people got divorced, and as soon as they get divorced, they haven't got the money. Within 2 months, they're homeless, completely living on the streets. So I was working with these people here to try and get some passion. And I love the word you're saying here about passion and that feeling and that thing about hate. It's a big thing, isn't it? When you hate the life you're in, and you often think then that you hate yourself.
Right.
You can hate yourself. You can really feel it, thinking, I hate myself, what I'm in. But all that, though, is external, isn't it? That's just a life going on outside around you, but it's what you're doing inside you. So hate is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's also a driver. it's also a driver to think, I hate this, but you don't like it. So you're going to move it somewhere. You're going to do something with it. You're going to change. So I'm helping these people to find jobs. And that cliffhanger, that cliff, I think is an important bit because these guys were on benefits, men, women, old, young, whatever they were. And they were on a where they had to get a job because the government was saying, we're only going to pay you for so much money. And then after that, it stops. And then what happens is that you're then at that cliffhanger saying, okay, where do I go now? Where do I go in my life now? Do I go and do a job? But the only thing is, your benefits have been taking care of your medical. They've been taking care of housing benefits. They've been taking care of payments for numerous different things. And then you go into a job which almost pound for pound equals out the benefits for what it was supporting you for. But the thing is, you're having to pay for it yourself. And it's interesting watching people go through that change. And the people who want to just clam up and in fear and just say, I'm going nowhere. And those who say, no, I'm going to do it because from that, I am going to make a better life.
Right.
And
right. It is a choice.
Yeah.
It is definitely a choice you have to make.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah.
I think so too. And I think talking about that side about passion there to get to where you're going to. I mean, when you think about that hate and you think about those feelings you were going through at that time, what turned it to go from hate to something else? What happened there?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't stop hating the job. Okay. So I want to be very clear that I had to create something new in my life and move on. And that took me getting complete what was this job and leaving it. And that completion looked like me leaving it. So my completion looked like me leaving because it was a toxic environment in my view and I wanted to not be there anymore. So I did there wasn't some like catalyst that like I was sitting in my workspace one day and then the next day I was like, I love it here. No, I still no. But I started to be recruited for things that were outside of the organization. And I've heard this. I heard this once. I don't know, like 7, 8 years ago, and I've heard it a couple times this year. And it's when you have a child that's struggling, you face them outward. So if a child is struggling in the home, you face them outward. So for whatever reason, during this time when I'm having all these problems, I'm getting tapped from the outside to say, take your light or whatever you're trying to build and stop trying to put it in this space that doesn't want it and turn it and put it out here into the world where it can be built into something else. So that's what happened. And I got tapped. Actually, a coworker at the time recommended me for underserved or low income women that were on the line but had a desire to do impactful work. And so that was a leadership program called Women's Community Leadership Initiative through an organization called Leadership's Pikes Peak, which is actually a private leadership organization that takes leadership curriculums and then puts people through them. And so I did that, and it was my first time ever be considered a leader. It was my first time anybody ever gave me any keys to the kingdom and said, here, learn this thing and now do a project. But I loved it. And we actually did a project at the domestic violence shelter that I lived at with my kids.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Wow.
great. So that was it. That was the thing that got me kind of turned around and got me looking at, okay, now what can I do out here? Because I don't need to focus on a corporate job. I don't need to focus on a team that doesn't hear me. I can go out here and either build my own team or build my own project. And that really inspired me. That really lit me out to go now start creating businesses and teams.
Just hearing that part of your story here, it really sounds like that part that you decided to go and change your life was the part that sounds like you decided, I'm going to be in control. Rather than...
Yeah. Well, I think that the time that I decided that I was going to be in control was when I left the domestic violence. Like when I left to come to Colorado, it was then that I was like, okay, there's no going back. I mean, and I can actually remember, so from North Carolina, where I was in a relationship, a very violent relationship, to Denver is about 19 hours or so driving. And so there were so many times, and I drove it straight through by myself. So by the time I got to Colorado, you talk about bonkers, that's what I was. I was bonkers. And I was seeing things and hallucinating, and like I hadn't slept, so it was really a bad deal. But I just wanted to get out, and I felt like if I just stopped, I would turn around. If I stopped, if I stopped for anything other than gas, it would be enough time for everything behind me, all the emotions, all the feelings, all that to catch up to me, or even him, really, to catch up to me. And then I would have to go back. And so I ran. I literally ran for my life. And I took this van, and by the time I got to Colorado, I had beat the crap out of this van so much that it just died. It just wouldn't go anymore. And it's so bad. So, but yeah, I had to choose to leave, and it wasn't an easy choice because I had just gotten my kids acclimated, and it was hard. It was a very hard choice. So really, the choice for me then was, I'm leaving. I'm not going to have this life anymore. I don't know what the next life is going to look like, but I'm done with this life. And so I did, and I got in the car and I drove the 19 or 20 hours or whatever it ended up being by myself, and I started our lives over. So, yes, I think, but that's what I meant earlier is I gave up after that like 5 times, like a lot, like really heavy gave up. Like I just didn't want to even function. And I
Yeah.
was in, domestic violence shelter and therapy and all these other things to kind of try to move myself forward. So it was almost like this onion, really tightly packed onion of trauma. And then every time I would do something, another layer would kind of come off and give me the opportunity to see what was really inside this pearl, that onion pearl. Oh, those actually exist. Inside that gave me the opportunity to say, okay, I have something good in here that I have to take off all the layers of trauma.
Yeah, and I think the layers of trauma is a good explanation because I think the layers, as that sometimes those layers of trauma are not ours. They're not ours. They're such an interesting thing because sometimes those layers of trauma are from what other people have put on us, or that life has put on us, but it's not us. We actually usually say, I think, you strip down the onion and you find that pearl, and there's me.
It's the view. I went through another ontological course at a different time, and they use glasses, and so they say, when something happens to you, you put the glasses on, and now you see the world this way. With
Yes.
this, with
Yeah.
this blinder on. If this is You're going to see the world this way. You can't not see the world this way until you take the glasses off. And
Yes.
so, that was only one small part of that entire program. But again, the same way. I don't know that it's necessarily that somebody has put something on, because they don't always put the glasses on you. Like, it's not somebody else putting the glasses on. It's you that put the glasses on.
Yeah, you
You
chose.
chose
You
those
chose.
glasses.
Absolutely. You chose to wear it. You chose to wear it. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Joe Gardner writes in. She says, yes, I agree. Getting out of domestic violence does get you your control back. Takes time to get over it, but the best thing I have ever done. Ever done.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good
And
job, you.
I think here that's it's amazing. And I think there's and it doesn't matter in some respects which side of the coin you're on, because although we're talking here, okay, women, domestic violence, also men suffer from domestic violence, it's just not recorded as much because men don't want their situation to be known. You're going to say something.
Well, I'm going to say something a little controversial.
Okay,
Okay.
go on, go on.
I I am, after many many years of therapy and becoming an advocate in domestic violence and sexual assault, I'm going to take this stance
Okay.
that any abuser was once abused. And
Right. Okay.
And so domestic violence doesn't start just, all of a sudden start from an abuser. Like, there's not an abuser that's just born and then they're just an abuser. Like, there are environmental and genetic things that cause that person to be an abuser.
Yes.
So it's almost becoming very important to me to make this distinction that you can be abused by someone, right? But a relationship that has abuse is not necessarily abusive, because again, you chose those glasses. So
Okay.
there are many, many situations in which women or men, but usually women, can't leave. They can't leave a relationship once they get in it. They're stuck.
That's interesting. Yes, they do feel stuck. I've actually talking to someone today about that feeling about being stuck, and be careful
No,
stuck.
physically stuck, Phil.
Yeah.
I mean, I have met women and men and transgender men that have been literally physically stuck in a place that they cannot leave because their abuser will kill them. Will
Yes.
kill them.
Yes.
Okay. And so I don't want to dismiss, like, I've worked with people like that. That exists. That's a thing.
Me too.
And
Me too.
if you want to get out, even in that circumstance, if you really want to get out, then there are organizations and people that can help you get out. Now, is it easy? No. And have I known that those people have gotten caught by their significant other? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, it's the choice of the view that you get to choose how you want to live your life. If you want to live in freedom or if you want to live in fear. And so, again, I should probably back up and say I'm not minimizing anybody that's too afraid to leave, because
Yeah.
it took me 5 years to leave, to even feel like I could. So, and I think I left maybe 13 times before I actually really left. So that's the other thing that I want to mention is when you leave domestic violence, the average person to leave domestic violence has to leave 8 times. 8 times.
That's a
Okay?
lot of times, isn't it?
8 times.
A lot of time.
So, there's some level of kind of you making the choice to be a person who no longer tolerates that. And to Joe's point, she said, you have to make the choice to leave. But you also have to make the choice to view yourself as a victim.
Just what I was going to say. Yes, often the person who's in a domestic violence situation there often feels they're a victim and often questions, what is it I've done wrong?
Right.
What is it I've done wrong? It must be my fault. It must be something. Until you go and see a outside person, outside professional who says, no, this is abnormal. This is not right. And then suddenly you begin to awaken and think, actually, my situation is what you were thinking was I've done something wrong becomes, no, actually, now I'm right. And I've got to get out of this. Get out of this situation. It's amazing. Yes.
I was real scared, though, to tell people, though.
Yeah.
And I see what you're saying, but even an outside, I would even say that a professional was really intimidating for me. Like, I didn't want to tell a professional about any of the abuse or any of the, the violence that was happening inside the home. I was not going to tell them that, because then that opened me up to be persecuted, to have my kids taken, and all those other things. So I kept that as close to the chest as I could. So no, it wasn't really until I let people that they weren't professionals, but they were mature. They were more mature. They were ahead of me. They had kind of gone through some stuff, and they could turn back and see, oh, that's a red flag. Did you see that red flag there? Because you're real smart. Why don't you notice that red flag? Like, that's really red. Like, you're really smart. So, like, it took somebody telling me, you're pretty, good job, for me to see, oh, wait, why am I dealing with that red flag? Like, why am I tolerating this? Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. So I don't want to minimize the professionals that made a difference, because it was them that had me really distinguish what was abuse and what was my own, my own suffering that I gave myself. And those professionals could help me distinguish that. But it was the people that were close to me that could see, like, under that seed of, you can't see anything else. You can't see this. It was those people that were close to me that said, no, this isn't right. You should probably investigate this. And I listened to them because I trusted them. So it was one more step before for me that I'm super dense. That's why, because I'm pretty dense. So it actually takes a couple of knocks on the door before it gets to me. That's it.
Joe Gardner says again, she says, it took me 3 years to leave only because the police arrested him. I could break away. So then me and my son went into hostels, 9 moves in all. 9 moves in all. Yes, yes. And Joe, you've been listening to this show for quite a while. And it's always lovely to have you on here. But congratulations to you being able to move on and change your life. Well done for you. Well done for you. Yes. Yes, go.
You had to move. I mean, I can only imagine that every time you had to move, that's like another conversation you had to have with yourself about, should I just go back? Should I just go do this? Like, is this better? Was this, so I say that's when you give up. You're like, I don't know that I can do it one more time, but you do it. You get together
You
and
get
you
up, you
move.
do it. Something gets you going. Something gets you going. So all this has built you up to be a very, very successful woman in industry. I mean, to go and win, the most outstanding woman in business in the Denver Business Journal. I mean, that's pretty big. That's pretty big to turn your life around. And absolute congratulations to you. I think it's absolutely fabulous.
Thanks.
In
I
fact,
didn't win yet. I didn't win yet. I'll find out
okay.
soon.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Just the way they're
So,
saying.
I still won. I still won. But
We're praying. We're definitely praying. Definitely praying. Melissa Coleman says, "My mother mentally and physically abused me, and it took me many years into adulthood to realise that what she had done and behaviour was so wrong. This is so interesting when you're young and you get this amount of abuse as from a mother to a child, because a child then just takes this all in because the subconscious just soaks it all in and thinks this is normal." Normal.
right,
It's normal to
right.
be like this. But later, so Melissa, congratulations to you to actually realize that you can actually move on for this particular time in your life and actually see yourself growing into a better person that you obviously are today. And your little thumbnail there looks absolutely wonderful. You look lovely, lady. So it's lovely to see you on the show.
Good for
And
you,
Joe,
hon.
who was just on, says, thanks so much. Yes, there we go. Good. And Eleni is sending hugs to everybody. That's beautiful. Okay, so
Yeah.
you
So, I mean, as far as the business goes, the thing that I guess I want to leave with is that I didn't have some great business idea. I didn't have a bunch of money. I didn't have a, family foundation. I didn't have a cushy corporate C-suite job that I was leaving to go start a business from. I was broken. I was desperate. I was looking for some way to, prove my worth, to get out of corporate, to not have to be, under the man. And I was really, young in my mind there, and young, period. And I
okay?
went through a lot of these circumstances at the same time that I was trying to build businesses.
Yeah.
And I kept on. I mean, there had been times that I've had to go back and get jobs and, work jobs to make it. And even now, I mean, I'm in a job, right? Like, I have a job. I don't consider it a job because I have a lot of flexibility and freedom there. But even now, I have a job, and I'm asked to be able to be a member of a team. But because of who I built myself as, because of the things that I went through, that's why I get to be that business leader. That's why I get to become, an entrepreneur and stay an entrepreneur. It's not that I just had the keys given to me and then I, whatever, trumped it. I had to create this from scratch over and over and over again. And it's funny that people are like, well, why do you have so many projects? Because I recreate myself a lot, and I recreate my intentions, and I recreate my team's intentions, and I try to pay attention to who's on my team and what do they have, what value adds do they have, what would they really enjoy working on. And the more that I become a leader, the more that I become a business woman, the more that I see that that's how you do business. That's why. It's because you take all the times that somebody punched you in the gut and then you turn it into something, and you say, hey, somebody punched me in the gut for that. Like, I'm going to actually create a way for them to not punch me in the gut anymore. Or I'm going to, create a way so that nobody else gets punched in the gut that way anymore. So I know that sounds crazy, but
No.
I'm very of the opinion that if we, as victims, started to transform our victim mentalities into a creation mentality, where we're taking from these terrible circumstances and then growing something from that. The blood in the soil, right, grows the best roses. Like, that is the way that if we started to transition our thought process, I think that we'd be making a big difference in development finance, in physical community development, in nonprofits, in business world. I mean, all those places would be affected.
I think here that what I absolutely loved and took a lot from that, especially very early along in that little spiel there, which was magic, absolute magic. I love the words that you spoke then, and I think one of the bits there you said here is how you look to recreate yourself, and that's why you do so many different projects and what you can do. And I think here this is where sometimes we get a bit lost because we look to go and do something, but we don't do it, or we stay on the same old, same old, same old, same old, and we're not reinventing ourselves, especially in times now with COVID. We got to reinvent ourselves or do something that reinvents ourselves to be able to modernize with 2020, because it always was going to be, whether you look at this spiritually, astrologically, or whatever mentality we had, we all knew 2020 was going to be a very different year, and it definitely has turned out to be like that. And I think that's amazing there. So just leave that spill there, how you reinvent yourself and how you go out there and think every time someone kicks you in the gut, every time someone punches you, how you can transform that energy into doing something, whether you don't do it again or you rise higher from it rather than going down.
I'm going to tell you 3 things that I do to do that I learned. And I learned them kind of the hard way.
I've got my pen ready because I'm going to write these down.
Okay, here are my 3 things. The first thing is record everything.
Record everything.
Record your life. And I mean that to some people that means like write a book. And to some people that means write a blog. And to some people that means write an article. And in your case, Phil, I mean, you express yourself and tell your story by interviewing other people. I love that, by the way. That's my favorite kind of way to tune in and learn about people and learn about things to do, because I get a lot personally out of that community type of. But some people, are more internal, and they tend to be more introspective. But I'd say definitely you need to record what's going on, when it happened. And as simple as we as victims of violence, or as people who have been involved in court cases, I'm sure that anybody that has been abused can attest that the cops say, well, did you have a record of that? Did you write that down? When did it happen? When did that call happen? When did they text you?
Yeah.
And so, as basic as it is, we are always asked for this information about, well, when did this happen? And so you creating a library, so to speak, of the circumstances and the tidbits in your life to take away is really impactful. So I think create a library or create a journal. I personally love the Passion Planner. I have like 6 years of Passion Planners in my closet. I love them. I think they're great. I love the
words. The words are great. Passion Planners. Fantastic.
Yeah. I'll go on a little detour and tell you that the Passion Planners founder was a college student who was just deeply depressed, and she couldn't lift herself out of the depression. So she designed the Passion Planner to try to help herself lift out of depression. And then she kind of gave it to a few friends, and they were like, you should sell this. And so she started selling it, and now it's I want to say $15 million business. So that she was a college student. She's actually the youngest Californian millionaire to millionaire in business there in her city. I mean, it was crazy. So just one little idea, one little thing.
I think you're spinning off ideas all over the place now. I love the idea to record things, and that's because sometimes we push them under the carpet and say, oh, well, never mind, it will just go, it will just disappear. And it doesn't. It's recorded somewhere, but it's not in the way it should be recorded for you to be able to evaluate, but it's recorded in your DNA somewhere that is hurting you. It's not helping you, it's hurting you.
But it's still, I think, so my second thing is actually to take that. It's that record you're talking about, that recording, and then repeat it.
Wow.
Over and over and over and over. And like actually say it to yourself, say it out loud, find somebody that you trust, preferably a therapist or a really close friend, and you repeat that story until it no longer has any control over you.
Okay. Yes. Now, that's amazing, because as soon as you mention about people having control over you, people often have this huge fear thing. How do I break this? How do I break the fear? Whether or not the person's still in your life or not. Whether or not it's the emotion, it's the phobia, it's the fear, it's that challenge of how to break through that phobia of releasing that person, that situation. I think record it, take it, repeat it. I think these 2 steps so far, I think, are amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, just to circle back on the repeat it, I say that it's really important that it's not repeated here, just here. It really has to be repeated here.
Yes. Yes.
And it's very important that, if that looks like you writing instead of speaking, okay. But you repeating it up here doesn't solve it, because it's still living in the same place.
Yep.
It's got to get out, the same face outward. It's got to get out, got to get it out. And so then when you can engage with somebody else, now here's step 3. Now you can create from that. Because the minute that you put out there and you say to other people, hey, this thing has had a hold of me for so long, and then, you're somebody else is like, oh,
Yeah.
I know that thing. That thing sucks. We should do this thing to fix it.
Yes. No,
We should build this thing to fix it, right? And it was all because you opened your mouth and said, I hate this thing. It's killing me. It's been killing me. This is my story about it. This is the story that's killing me. I need your help. And somebody else saying, I know that story. That story sucks. This is what we can do together to get out of it. And now all of a sudden you have a blueprint that you can give to other people.
No,
So
incredible, absolutely incredible. Is the RTC, the record, take it and repeat it, and create a new energy you want to there. That's interesting. Just say a little bit what happened to me when I was younger, and I don't know why it came about, but I think it was shyness. I think it was feeling I didn't fit in. And it's probably personally because I think there was a spiritual awareness which I just couldn't understand what was going on. Didn't connect it. No one really understood what it was. And so I developed this terrible, terrible social stigma, which was a stutter. And I couldn't say words. I was there trying to say something while I was going and it shut me down. What was the point here? From a person who I wanted to express but couldn't express, I had 2 forces pushing against it, and I went down. I went right down, and I just became a social recluse in many respects here. And I lost confidence. I lost the feeling that I could build friendships, relationships in my life. I was always afraid of people that I was going to stutter. And in the English classes at school, I remember that we all had to read the books aloud so that we could, like a story going on. And as each person was reading a different part of the story, I was trying to build up the confidence by reading their bit as well as mine. But I'm doing it under my words. And then it comes around to someone else and I'm reading their bit and mine. And then it comes to someone else and I'm reading their bit and mine. And then eventually it comes to me and I'm thinking, hopefully I've got some confidence here. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But that particular age of my life here, I was absolutely terrified and didn't fit in. Didn't fit in at all. And I felt like a social, distant person here. I felt bullied. I felt intimidated. And because I was a stick. I was as skinny as a stick. I mean, after a few burgers and a few pints of beer, it's changed a little bit. Not much, but changed a little bit. But no, trying to compete with life here and come out of this. But eventually, something happened about the age of about 22. And my cousin went to see a palmist. And that was it. I became interested. I wanted to get involved with spirituality. And then that confidence fear just went. And very quickly, I came back to normal conversation. And now I can't stop talking. I love it. I mean, my wife here says, will you shut up? No.
Well,
can we stop now? Can we watch? Yes. Can we watch the telly or do something like that? No. We need to talk. So it's my job now where on my profile on one of the Facebook pages I have is Phil Griggs Let's Talk. So yes, Let's talk. Let's get stuff out there, and you can change your life. And I think what I've been through with that was a lot. The social depression I went through as a kid was huge. It's not the same as abuse that what you went through, but we all face challenges. But I think if you take the action that something's going to come into your life to change you, and I think it's a belief somewhere. There's something about a new belief. You got to have a belief somewhere which changes that mode. I think that's where for me, it's where it comes from. I think for you, your driving force is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And everybody here is saying, Tonya says amazing. So my wife there, who's also the post sorting out the show here, she says powerful words. And Cheryl says here, it's giving us all confidence tonight. This is absolutely fabulous. We're going to take a very short break, then we're back in a mo. Okay, right, guys out there, we've done a lot of talking and we've done a lot of soul searching here. We've, in a sense, here given you a lot of inspiration because you guys are coming back there. Have you guys got any questions? Anything you'd like to say? Hey, I'm going through this particular thing in my life here. You don't have to put all graphic details down, but enough for us to work on, say, or especially here for my great guest Alessandra to work on, to be able to turn around and say, hey, you got to look at it like this, this, and this, or approach things differently. If you want to write in here, by all means do. And but so far, the response to this show so far, the amount of people who are on and watching, and the way my comments and reaction stream is going. If you don't mind, Alessandra, can we invite you back on again another time?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come back. Thank you so much.
This is so much fun, so interesting. I never, to tell you the truth here, I never had any idea how this show was going to go until we came on here. And people say, "Oh, what's it going to be like?" I don't know. I don't know. I just know it's going to be good. But then I didn't realise it was like, wow, it's absolutely fantastic hearing your story. I love the passion, the drive to just change your life here, to record what you've gone through, to take it, repeat it, and then create where you want to go. I think that's just to have something that works. And the passion board, or the passion, you called, your friend called this the passion planner. Passion planner. I write these words down because I just think I want to repeat these, and on a Sunday show especially, just saying my review back on the week. And Cheryl says already, this has affected my life. Well, that's fantastic if we could do a show like this. So, Cheryl, have you got any questions? Joe, have you got any questions? Sarah, Tonya, anyone out there who's got any questions that would just like to say, hey, how can I go through this? Now, this is interesting. Jay has just come in here and she says, having left an emotional, abusive relationship, I've taken so much positive and strength from it to transform my life, to move forwards and help others. Thank you for sharing it. It gives us all hope. So I think this is just fabulous that you could share that with us, Jay, and to say how we've gone through. And these relationships are out there, and yet we don't know. What we see of people, sometimes they're also friendly on the outside. They're behind closed doors, things are slightly different. And but where you go there. My dog feels abused at the moment. He's got a cone on his head. A cone on his head. I would find a picture if I could find it. It's a cone on his head because he's just recovering from a little operation. A little boy does. But so at the moment, I'm trying to humour him. I'm calling him, or actually myself, my wife are calling him Conehead the Barbarian.
Okay.
Conehead the Destroyer. Trying to give him a bit of Arnie talk and see how it goes. Okay. Okay. Yes, I do. Well, I've had a miserable week. Okay. So when we change your week, so if you have a miserable week and you think, okay, this is hard work, hard weather, no matter what it is, here, what notion would you say? What would be your first drive to say here? What would you do to think, right, I'm going to change it?
Yeah, I have bad weeks all the time. I mean, so the way that I deal with it is mostly I find the people that are close to me and I go and chat with them about the stuff that's on fire in my life. And usually they have something good to add or some tidbit that they would do differently or that they would improve upon. And I try to listen to that and I try to implement that. And then sometimes I just need people to listen to me and grab a good bottle of wine and just kind of hang out. And that's how I deal with bad weeks. Sometimes I create from them and I work with somebody, and sometimes I just drink a good bottle of wine and try to feel better about it the next week.
Okay, so Tonya, the question is here to you is, do you actually talk about the fact you have a miserable week, or does it stay in here? If it stays in here, as we were talking about earlier, this is not a good place for it to be. Where this is just going to go round and round. This is a bit like the washing machine, except the load gets bigger.
Yeah, I do talk about it. And I think that that's part of why I said in the beginning, in the beginning of my 3-step, here's my cue to 3 steps is, that week I'm recording what's happening that week. And then at the end of that week, I have a date with my boyfriend or my girlfriend or whatever. And I sit down with them and I tell, maybe don't go through the whole list and whip out my journal like a weirdo, but I have in my head, like, hey, this happened at work, and this happened with this client, and this happened with my team member, and it's all on fire. And what would how do I deal with this? And it's all on fire, and it's all on fire. And then at the end of that conversation, a lot of the time, there's something for me to take. Is it resolved? No, it's not resolved. But there's something for me to take out of that conversation with the person that I trusted, whether it's my doctor, it's my my friends or my family, and then to turn around and say, okay, now the next day, because I usually have to sleep on it, I can create something that my next week is not going to look like last week looked. Because I talked about it, right?
Did you talk to it?
Yeah,
yes.
You have to talk about it. You have to get it out of here, and you have to put it out into the world. And again, that can be journaling. That some people that's even picture taking. But you have to get it out. It has to be outward, facing outward.
Interesting. I'm just going to come back on this conversation a second. Susanna Flowers, she says here, you take so much, then you wake up and smell the coffee. Another survivor. Fantastic. Good to hear that, Susanna. Good to hear that. And just to come back to Tonya, she says, no, I don't talk. No, I don't talk. She says, it's hard being a Scorpio. We keep it all in.
Yeah, I know a few Scorpios. Actually, my stepson sort of kind of kid there is a Scorpio, and he's the same way. He doesn't want to let it out. But the more that you let it sit inside of you, the more it festers. Actually, I know a lot of Scorpios that are really, really creative. I mean, I don't know if that's a sign thing. I mean, I don't know everything, but I know a little bit. And like Scorpios tend to be really physically creative. And a lot of the Scorpios I've known in my life have been drawers. They've actually drawn pictures, been artists in a way that they could capture an animal or a tree or a flower or whatever in a certain way just because they see it in that dimension. So I guess I would say to you, Scorpio, that maybe there's something for you to look at inside your creativity that you can express yourself and get it out without you feeling pressure to have a conversation, but instead maybe you're somebody that makes a funny comic, or maybe you're somebody that records a video or is a photographer. Maybe you have a more physical media way of getting your thoughts and processes out, but you still got to get them out. Like using it as I don't like to talk. That's an excuse. Yeah. You don't accept excuses from yourself. That's why you're listening to this. That's why you have worked on yourself. That's why you left domestic violence. I mean, you've done these things. So then go back. Don't do that. Find the mediary that has you be able to get yourself out, whatever it looks like.
I think that's incredible advice. I think it's very good. Tonya, love to hear what you would think about that there. And actually, yes, Scorpios are very, very creative, very passionate, very deep people. We can assume they go very deep, and it's the trust element in a Scorpio. If that gets broken, it's very difficult for a Scorpio to retrust again. They do hold it all in. But I think if you can vision it, you can draw it, you can paint it, you can photograph it, you can write it. Or if you find someone there that's a Scorpio themselves, perhaps, or even the absolute find a Taurian perhaps, they'll be very good as well. They'll sit down there to listen, or a fabulous Capricorn.
Yeah. Okay.
But anything there where we can bring out the passion things here. But it's that caring side to your nature, because there must be a lot of Cancer somewhere in your chart. Cancer in your star sign there, because it's so much care you've got, because the care turns into passion, turns into power, turns into doing things. I think it's just incredible with you. Just go back here. She said, now this is interesting. We've got all the questions coming in right up now. Cheryl says, how do you cope when you aren't sure who to trust when you had mutual friends? So she's broken up for a relationship. Things gone some way, but they have mutual friends. Now she wants to know who to trust.
Well, I have this. I'll tell you my story, Phil. My story recently, actually, in the last.
Oh yes, months. Good. Go for it.
I had a gal working for me, and I was really close to her, and I trusted her a lot. I gave her like pretty much the keys to the kingdom of my business. Yeah. Because I'm so passionate about mentoring her and helping her. And I have 11 mentees right now. I'm very open to mentoring people. I if you want to learn how to launch a business, great. Like, let's chat, So I was working with her and helping her to launch her own administrative firm. And something happened, okay, where there was a miscommunication with a third party. And the third party, whatever their communication was, a false narrative that didn't involve me. but my assistant or my, mentee at that time made up whatever she made up and said that that's how she believed that it happened. So I had to then deal with what had happened over here, even though I wasn't involved in that conversation. I didn't even know what was happening over there. It wasn't my conversation, but I had to clean it up. And ultimately, I had to make a choice. How do I deal with that? Do I then let her come back in to all the things that I had built? And in that relationship, I tried. I said, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm kind of a rule of threes. I don't know if you got that yet, but I like doing things in threes. I feel like that's a good checks and balances way of doing things. So the way that I tried to, work it out with her was I said, I don't want to have this conversation when we're both really volatile.
Yeah.
And that conversation stopper didn't work. Okay. But I tried. The second way that I tried to make the conversation continue was I put all of my thoughts in a written email. And I said, this is what I'm struggling with, this, and this. So I was really specific about what I was dealing with over here.
I think that's a big thing for Cheryl to hear. She's got to be really specific about whether that is a mutual friend or a true friend, and how that mutual friend, if they're trustworthy or if they're just going to relay all that information back to their ex. And it's that mutual friend you're going to build the trust with. And often, as you may say, Alessandra, is that body language will tell you straight away if they're going to be trusting or not.
Yeah, and now we're in the age of 2020 where you may not get to see body language. So it's really a matter of, going back to, okay, you want to get this complete? Okay, then get it complete. Because if that looks like you sending an email, and by the way, this is not an inflammatory email. This is not a you hurt me and I hate you email. This is I really care about this friendship, or I really don't want to continue this friendship, and here are the reasons why, or here are the things I want to work on. And so I think it's also that. But then, the thing is you really got to listen to the response.
Absolutely. It's the response you get from your mutual friends is going to tell you whether they're on your case or not. Absolutely. Right. So hopefully, Cheryl, that sorts you out there. Now, here comes a mutual friend, by the sounds of it, to you, Ali. Elizabeth Payne. I met Ali during her days at WCLI. She's always been a strong leader. It's great to see this transformation and sense of direction. My question is, I'm 42. I don't know what my passion is. How do I figure it out?
Yeah, I met Liz in WCLI, and she's got this great humor. She's just somebody that has a almost like a dry sense of humor that fits anywhere. Yeah. So she has a way of connecting with her audience in any audience that is, just by being able to kind of squeeze in some humor there. It's something
I believe. I tell you what, if there's humor there, I think I get on with Elizabeth just fine.
I'm absolutely sure that you would. Actually, I've gotten this question like a few times in the last 6 months from some of the gals that I've been working with in Fiore, and they kind of come into Fiore and they're like, well, I don't really know what I want to do. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do marketing or if I want to do human resources. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I always give them a lot of things to try out. I always give them a lot of projects, a lot of trial tasks. And sometimes, in the beginning, I gave them way too much too early. Yeah. I had to learn to scale that back. But I kind of started to create this process where I would do this personality test with them, just so that they could see what it is that they were strong at, what it is that they were drawn to naturally. Because sometimes people don't always know that. And I'm not talking about a Disney princess personality test. I'm talking about a real, no crap, personality test, like either the Myers-Briggs or the Strength Finders, something that you have to spend $20 on. I know $20 is a lot sometimes, but doing that so that you can get to the point where you really are looking at what is really important to you right now. And to Liz, I actually know you, Liz, so I'm going to call you out a little bit. I know you're personally going through a pretty significant life circumstance where you've had somebody close to you in your family die. And so I don't know about you, but when my father died, my priorities went like this. They went completely into a sunset and sunrise, cycle. And whether or not we had a great relationship, a lot of the things that I felt about myself and about the world started to shift. So the things that were once important to me weren't anymore, and new things became important to me. So I really do think that getting a feel for what is going on in your personality and what you're drawn to is a really good way for you to get started. And okay, well, I'm drawn to being creative, or I'm drawn to communicating with people flatly, or I'm drawn to, finding new projects, or whatever it is that you're drawn to. I think that that's the step that really has made an impact in the team. And then being able to go and try some things out, like finding people that you trust that
Yep.
want you to help them in those areas, and say, oh, I thought I was going to do marketing, but I actually hate it. It's terrible. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. And you being able to be really fluid. So find a mentor. Like, I'm a pretty big person into, it doesn't have to, whoever that mentor is, it doesn't matter how old you are, by the way. You can find a mentor that's younger than you, that's older than you, that's the same age, because people that have gone through different circumstances have something to give. They have keys to give you so that you can build your own keys to the kingdom. So the two things for you, Liz, because I love you and I think it's a good question, is, do an introspective test, whether it's formalized or not, but really do a categorizing list of what do you want to accomplish in your life, what's important to you. I think personality tests do that for you, so I would suggest that. And then I would also say, really start to look at who can you take on as a mentor, a real mentor, not a pretend mentor, not somebody that spends 5 minutes a week with you, somebody that's willing to give you an hour a week, 2 hours a week, and really go through your goals with you and help you to find projects and jobs and people that want you to grow. That's really the focus.
Wow. I'll tell you what, this is one of the very few shows that I haven't had to say much.
Sorry about that, Bill.
No, it's absolutely fantastic. It's been absolutely fabulous. Elizabeth, just to help you out here, because the time zone, I imagine you are over there in Colorado area. Is that right? That sort of way? That sort of direction?
Yeah, I think Liz is still in Colorado. She's
Okay.
a nomad. She travels all over the state and contributes to all kinds of people. I think I've seen her go out of state too, but I'm pretty sure she's in Colorado.
Okay, there's a very caring side to Elizabeth, which I would say here to do with her personality. And the other thing I'd say around her as well here is not be afraid to stand up. Afraid to stand up there, to be yourself. You don't need to follow anybody else. You need to have your own power. However, on Sunday coming up is the show again, which is the spiritual astrology show. So if you would like to write in with your date of birth and your details there, date of birth, favorite color, and this question here, I don't know what my passion is, where I'm supposed to be going, will help you out. Definitely with astrology and things like that. I'm definitely not trying to steal one of your friends, by the way.
Oh, I love it. Do it. Yes. Also, Liz, my third thing is listen to Phil's show more often, because he's great. And
Thank you very much.
Really interesting people that come on. So I'm lucky that you chose me today. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's been absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Just got to do another quick video clip for tomorrow morning and just drop this in. So the spiritual astrology shows tomorrow with myself and Guillemar. In the meantime, though, Alessandra, I just want to say a huge thank you to you. This has been an amazing show. Just joining with you tonight has been such an inspiration, such a beautiful experience for me. And I think everybody's comments here, I think they're going to go back, watch the show again, read everybody else's comments through the feed, because I think they're all writing to each other, all geeing each other up. It's hilarious, but it's fantastic. Brilliant too. But we'll talk very, very soon. And we're going to have to, I think if it's okay with you, get you back in for another show and just talk about everything. Because when people suddenly realised that, they can share their stories and we're going to chat about it, I think everybody absolutely loved it. So, no, Alessandra, what can I say? Big heart.
I loved it. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
That's the truth. It's a big heart and a burger. Heart burger. It's all a small burger. It's all the same. It's all the same. But guys, thank you so much. Alessandra, just stay on the line there. I'll come back to you in a minute.
Okay.